So, the Brexit. To be honest, I didn't intend to comment on this at all, because although I'm interested in the matter, I'm far from an expert. But so are the vast majority of fellow YouTubers commenting on it, so fuck it. I kinda wished the Leave faction would win. Not because I thought they were right. In fact, I feared that they were digging their own graves in economical terms and questioned whether a larger degree of independence would be worth it. I still wanted this precedent to happen, because I have some issues with the EU as well, and given the fact that it's only a matter of time until some member state leaves, I preferred it to be a country like Britain rather than, say, Romania. You know, a successful, a contributing member of the EU that is comparable to my home country of Germany in terms of economy and society. As a case study that might help me make up my mind and evaluate the risks and chances connected to leaving the EU. Back to the Brexit movement and the problems I have with them. Most of their arguments seemed rather poor to me. I'll ignore the economical promises made by the Brexit side that aren't going to be kept anyway, as well as the worst of the nationalist rhetoric that came with it. I'm more interested in the arguments made by people whose political positions I like or at least understand. Both sides did their fair share of fear-mongering. One, advocating the status quo because we don't know what the alternative is going to be like. The other side, taking my own concerns about unchecked mass immigration to over-the-top levels. I usually stay away from YouTube drama and infighting, but I think that the conversations between Sargon of Akkad and Thunderf00t serve to illustrate my point. I strongly suggest you watch those conversations yourself, because I'm not going to recap them in their entirety. And yeah, I understand that this must be a very emotional topic for British people, and I think the aftermath shows exactly that, so I'm probably going to piss off some of you. But hear me out. Thunderf00t's position is basically that the EU isn't really that influential, but the common market and scientific funding that come with it are beneficiary. Which was enough for some of his subscribers to name him Thundercock and claim that he as a scientist has a conflict of interest. And that is such a stupid criticism that I hope none of you are guilty of making it. Because I hold you to a higher standard, and I really mean that. It's not a conflict of interest because he isn't some politician or policymaker corrupted by his STEM and big pharma donors' bribes. He's a scientist. And if his current or former employers have in fact received EU funding, then that only illustrates his point that the EU is beneficiary to society from his perspective. It's like saying someone receiving a pension and voting for the side not wanting to cut that pension has a conflict of interest. It's not. The evaluation of personal costs is what influences every single voter's decision. Thunderf00t is being pragmatic here, and that's why I'm gravitating towards his position on the matter. The way he conducted himself in these debates didn't help his case though, and although I understand why he was short-tempered with his opposition, he should have done better. But both him and Sargon aren't exactly skilled at debating. At the same time, Sargon's points boil down to immigration control and conspiracy theories. Don't get me wrong, I do like the guy, but his constant emphasis on the Orwellian superstate that the EU might become seemed out of place.
I'll give you this thing.
How are they going to enforce it?
Well, presumably with the European army that they make.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't think that? So the way that we will adopt the euro will be at the barrel of a gun.
No, they'll do it through sanctions and just political pressure.
I know that the larger a democratic institution becomes, the lesser the value of each vote. If Sargon had left it at that and said he doesn't want Britain to be one, as he puts it, demos amongst many others, as far as binding policies are concerned, I would have been fine with it. But he didn't. Instead, he focused on the idea of a European army which has been around for decades and never been made a reality.
You might get some limited peacekeeping force.
He focused on overreaching EU laws of which he couldn't name one. And he focused on the fact that the European Parliament doesn't elect the executive.
And I can't vote for them. I can only vote for their dog's body MEPs.
Which actually serves the national interests of individual member states, as each EU commissioner is named by his or her nation's government. And therefore, the commission members do their government's bidding. To make it simple, the people of Europe vote for members of the European Parliament every 5 years. Those are the people ratifying laws. And then the people of each European country vote for their own government at another time and indirectly influence who their member of the Commission is going to be, the people that propose laws. As far as I can tell, it's an attempt to provide the EU with an executive branch that is small enough to actually get things done while controlling them at the same time through the directly elected European Parliament. Just wanted to clear that up. The tipping point for me to make this video was this, however. The reaction of the YouTube community, which may very well be representative of the overall public. Especially Thunderf00t is getting a beating in his comment section, which I think is undeserved. Even if you disagree with his position on the EU and his dismissive attitude towards low information voters, don't attack his character because of a political disagreement. Of course, these disagreements are bound to happen, as Thunderf00t as well as Sargon of Akkad or even people like Paul Joseph Watson share some of the same viewers. Making videos opposing religion, radical feminists or social justice fanatics is going to attract viewers on both sides of the political spectrum. I do the same thing, and I don't mind communicating with subscribers who don't share my own political ideas when it comes to different topics. I don't use the term right-wing as a substitute for wrong because I think that nationalism and conservatism do have their place in a democracy, even if I don't agree with it for most of the time. I enjoy having the chance to talk and listen to people whose political opinions I don't really come across that much in my personal life. And I enjoy watching other YouTubers' content, even if I disagree with them on some issues. But a portion of people who gravitate towards content creators that oppose progressive echo chambers are in fact only looking for their own echo chamber. And when triggered, they behave and sound just like the progressive with or against us absolutists they like to look down on. If you want to see it for yourselves, just look at the comment section of any of Thunderf00t's latest videos. It's a sad display. And I think that Sargon of Akkad and others like him are partially to blame for this. Now, I believe that he is being sincere when he calls himself a classical liberal in the philosophical sense of the term. He is a full-on Democrat. And I believe that he is honestly concerned about the way the EU is going, and I do agree with him on that, which is why I'm not strictly against the choice that has been made. Nevertheless, he chose to ally himself with nationalist extremists. He, as well as the majority of Brexit proponents, aren't responsible for the actions taken by the most lunatic people on the pro-Brexit side. He is not responsible for the tension that resulted in the assassination of Joe Cox. Let me make that absolutely clear, because I don't even wish to imply that. When you aim for a political goal and it comes to choosing your allies, you cannot pick and choose as thoroughly as you would if it was a minor political concern of yours. That is the nature of alliances. Having said that, Sargon, as well as a lot of fellow Brexit proponents who aren't extremists by any stretch of the imagination, conveniently ignore that some people on their side haven't only used terrorist tactics but lied. And that did sway the result of the referendum. To what degree, we may never know. Oh, he mentioned the false economic promises made by pro-Brexiters in 1/2 sentences after the referendum, but he chose not to get into any details on that because to him all that matters is the principle of sovereignty. And in doing that, he made himself guilty of what he rightfully accuses others of doing, choosing what information to share and what to withhold. And I hope that he's not going to go down that rabbit hole until he's unrecognizable. I hope that he is going to speak out about the legit criticism made against his side, rather than throwing one tantrum about millennials after another.
You selfish sons of bitches. I am just amazed at the awfulness of some of the people I've been seeing. It's just, oh god, you are just such bad people. You're just bad fucking people. You are selfish and narcissistic and insolent, and you don't even understand anything. Let's talk about millennials for a minute, and this is going to be hashtag not all millennials.
I agree that the ageist attitudes voiced by some millennials are shitty, but get some perspective and look at the deceit that your own side is guilty of. Look at both of them and judge both of them fairly. And yes, I'm still subscribed to him because I'm genuinely interested in his opinions. One last word about the Brexit. I respect the choice made by the British people, or should I say the English people. Nevertheless, the outcome of that remains to be seen. David Cameron resigned before enacting Article 50.
But the British people have made a very clear decision to take a different path. And as such, I think the country requires fresh leadership to take it in this direction. I will do everything I can as Prime Minister to steady the ship over the coming weeks and months. But I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination.
After that, we witnessed a rather sullen-looking Boris Johnson giving his victory speech.
In voting to leave the EU, it is vital to stress that there is now no need for haste.
He always reminds me of Chapman, by the way.
Bene, vide, vici.
I think that the reason why he didn't look like a triumphant was that now it's going to be him who has to enact Article 50, or whoever else is going to be the Prime Minister. And that seems to be a prospect he's not looking forward to. It would have been so much easier to simply have your forebearer take the responsibility for that and the fallout it's going to produce. Now, the Parliament is going to elect the next Prime Minister, and his or her stance on the EU referendum is going to be the deciding factor in that vote. Frankly, I fear that the choice of the people isn't going to be respected, because no one wants to be the one in charge when the Brexit is set into motion. And if that is in fact the case, the display of democratic power that was the Brexit vote will turn into just another political game played on the people. I'm the Thoughtful Cuctrarian. Feel free to rate, comment, share and subscribe. Or unsubscribe, but if that is your gut reaction, I suggest you take a deep breath first.